Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Sage Intacct demo. I am Neil Grabarnik, the Sage Intacct sales consultant, and we have Matthew Frampton here, who is our solutions consultant, knows Intacct like the back of his hand, so he will be definitely informative in the presentation. Just a quick overview for today, about 5 minutes for me, 40 minutes for Matthew, and then some time for your questions. Before we move to the demo, just a little information about Vision 33. Selecting the right software is important, but the right partner is the real difference maker for your business. A few things Vision 33 brings to the table. Extensive support and industry experience. We have many longtime customers who rely on our partnership to support their business, and we're a leader in the Sage community. Implementation is just the beginning of your journey. Vision 33 is here for long-term support and customer care. And ultimately, it is our consistency, reliability, focus on excellent customer experiences, and leveraging our knowledge to help you transform accounting frustrations into success and strategic growth. And like Sage, Vision 33 is a global company, but we like to say we operate as a small business. Our main operations are in the US, Canada, and the UK, and we have certified accountants to serve you locally. And here are some of our excellent customers running Sage Intacct. They come from all over the spectrum, including nonprofit, SaaS, technology, professional services, and more. And I'm sure most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but here are a few highlights. As you can see, Sage Intacct supports several industries and offers industry-specific functionality. Vision 33's biggest customer footprint is nonprofit, where we have approximately 35% of our client base. Building expertise in these verticals really helps us guide our customers down the right path with their implementation, including your sector's best practices for reporting. And here's a quick snapshot of Sage's global reach. We have millions of customers worldwide. And here's another snapshot that shows Sage Intacct's global reach, serving customers in 80 plus countries and in 130 plus functional currencies. And if you're interested in the underlying numbers, Sage Intacct is as secure as it gets. You no longer need to worry about backups, downtime, and costly upgrades. It just works all the time. And Sage Intacct isn't a solution that was retrofitted for the cloud. It's a cloud-native solution from its first line of code. It's an affordable, easy-to-use solution for finance teams that need only specialized finance tools. It's also a modular solution, which means you pay only for what you need now, and you can add more functionality when you need it. We call Sage Intacct a best-of-breed solution, and its open API makes it easy to seamlessly integrate with other best-of-breed solutions. And for integrations, Sage has what's called the Sage Intacct Marketplace, filled with pre-built integrations to other best-of-breed solutions for CRM, e-commerce, and much more. And if the solution you want to integrate isn't on the Sage Intacct Marketplace, Vision 33 can build the integration for you with Saltbox, which is our exclusive cloud-based integration solution built by our automation and integration experts. And just a final word about Sage Intacct's embedded AI. While it's not built into our demo environment just yet, we want to introduce you to Sage Copilot. Basically, Sage Copilot is like getting a very smart productivity assistant. It gives you answers you can trust and tools for a smoother, faster month-end close. So be sure to ask your consultant about Sage Copilot when they follow up with you. And now I'll turn it over to Matthew for the demo. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Hi, everyone. As Neil mentioned, I'm Matthew. I'll be walking you through our weekly demo today. So first of all, remember that Intacct is a native cloud environment. It is 100% browser-based. So what that means is you can access your system anywhere, anytime, as long as you have a device that can access the internet, an internet connection, and you remember your credentials. So at home on your personal laptop, in a Starbucks, having a coffee, at the airport, waiting for a flight, you name it, you can log in and do everything you see me do here today. Next would be just a little other note about it being a native cloud solution. If you're currently using an on-prem solution, you have server maintenance costs, you have on-site servers, You need to secure those servers. So that all equals money. All of that will go out the door. No more on-site servers, obviously, with the cloud environment. All that is maintained through Sage's data centers, which are in your geographical region, and everything is nice and secure through their partners and our partners with Microsoft and Amazon Web Services. Last but not least would be the updates to the solution. So with an on-prem solution, again, when an update is released for the solution that you are using, you will get prompted to install that update. You have to wait for that update to install. Some people bring in consultants to install it. And if the update does not go smoothly, which does happen, I have been there, then your hands are kind of tied. You're kind of sat there and you can't really do a whole lot. Well, with Intacct, that will go away. Intacct updates automatically 4 times per year. You don't have to confirm anything. You don't have to push any buttons. It's a set date. It flows into the solution and away you go. It's business as usual. Doesn't make the solution slow, won't make the solution unavailable. It will not break any third-party integrations that you may have. It's a very seamless update. If it wasn't for the homepage that you see highlighted right now, it says release 3 is here. You might not even notice it occurred unless you went in and into some configuration screens and noticed some new functionalities were available for you to turn on and use. But if you wanted to know about everything that has been updated with the most recent release, you can click on read the release notes. That will bring you into a really nice table of contents and summary. It's organized by region, the geographical region you're in. There's nice highlight videos and summaries of some of the functionality here. And if you want to drill into some reading material, which is what I prefer to do, I like to drill into the financial section and I'll pick out the modules that have the updates that interest me the most, or I think I can leverage most for my ongoing projects or my past projects. Because we will always try to remember if a client has already gone live and they'd been asking for a particular functionality, we will try to remember to reach out to them and say, hey, this is available now. Do you want to learn how to use it? So they're not small updates. You can see they're fairly broad. With R3, we had changes in AP, AR, cash management, consolidations, construction, which is not really the system we're going to show today, but it is still in this list, contracts, dashboards, employee expenses, fixed assets, GL, and so on. So they're pretty big updates and they usually come with some really strong functionality. So just a little note there on the updates. With that out of the way, let's look at actual functionality in the system. So Intacct does a lot of stuff really, really well. It's a really strong financial accounting solution. It really allows you to enter your transactions with appropriate settings or dimensions that allow you to isolate data and drill into particular data that you need to drive decision making, to do some analytical work. The backbone of what allows you to do that comes from what Intacct calls dimensions in their system. So right here under the cross-company dimensions, you're going to see a little list below me. So we have assets. So fixed assets, they are technically a dimension. You're going to see line of business. This is the class dimension, which I have relabeled to line of business in this environment. We have the department dimension, the employee dimension, the location dimension. Entity is also a dimension that you see over here. Customer and vendor are also technically a dimension, but we're never going to really repurpose those. Everybody has their own set list of customers and vendors, but they do come with all the powers of dimensions. And out of the box, you will also get the item dimension. Now, it doesn't have to be inventory items. These can be non-inventory items that are just used for tracking purchases, sales, and so on. So what these dimensions do, and I always like to use the department dimension as my example. It's probably the most commonly used dimension across all of our clients. It takes what previously would have resulted in you having, say, sub accounts on your GL account number, and it takes those sub accounts off of your GL account numbers and it puts them into their standalone list. So if you do work with a chart of accounts that has sub accounts at the end of it, and you were trying to track financial activity across 5 different departments, and you had 10 GL account numbers that you wanted to track across these 5 departments, you would actually end up with 50 separate GL accounts, right? The first GL account dash 100, then that same GL account dash 200, dash 300, dash 400, dash 500, and then you move on to the next GL account, and you need a variation of that GL account with 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500 again. And what that does is it really bulks out your chart of accounts really, really quickly, because I use an example of 10 GL accounts across 5 departments, both of those numbers are probably a little bit low, right? Like 10 GL accounts is not a whole lot if you're tracking revenue and expenses. Realistically, it's probably more along the lines of 20 or 30. And the majority of my clients that use the department dimension, they have more than 5 departments. They may have 10 or 15. So, that would result in a very expanded chart of accounts. And when you get an expanded chart of accounts, it's harder to build financial reports. There's more mapping that you need to do. And you're also going to end up with more keying errors. If you give people more selections to choose from, they're going to make more mistakes. That's just the way it is. I would do the same thing if I were in a similar role right now. We all do it. We all make keying errors. It's just too easy to have happen. So it really helps your chart of accounts stay at its core. It's going to give you all of the power that you would normally get as having a standalone GL account, because the way these function is if you tag a GL account plus a department, it really operates as its own GL account, the way we can manipulate it in financial reporting or GL detail reports or whatever you want. You can isolate that data not only as easily, but more easily and more flexibility than you would be able to if you had sub accounts. So a little example of how it works. When I'm entering a transaction into Intacct, any transaction that hits my books, I tag not only a GL account on my line levels, but I also tag any number of dimensions that I have deemed relevant to that GL account. So if we were tracking our rent across our different departments, because when we get our monthly rent, we allocate it out to our departments based on the square footage that each department, the employees, the square footage the employees take up their office space, right? So let's just put in some random numbers here. I'll just put in 650, 450, 850. We'll go with 150, and then we'll also go with 100 to keep it a reasonable monthly rent number. And if this wasn't related to a project, then we could leave project blank. And if we leave project blank, we're going to leave task blank. We would fill out a location here. So generally the company that we're working for, and I can make certain things like if a particular dimension is going to be constant throughout the line level, I can really quickly expand that down to everything. But then our departments is where we're getting in for this GL account. So we can say the sales department has square footage that will make this equal 650. The services department is 450. Our admin department takes up a lot of square footage. They're at 850, and then so on, right? And we could tag this out. So this is just an example of an AP bill where we would be hitting all of our different departments at once. Of course, you don't have to do this, right? Like if you get an AP bill that just has expenses for one department, then you simply would just have a single line on here. Or maybe there are other things built in here where you can say everything that we're getting. I'm going to put, I shouldn't put a revenue account there. Everything on this AP bill, rent and utilities came on one bill for whatever reason. And that total is all related to the same department. You can, of course, tag like the same department on multiple line levels. It doesn't have to always be spread across. So that's kind of the idea. And again, what that allows me to do is when I want to run a GL detail report and I'm running it on my rent GL account or my utilities GL account, I can run it for all of my departments and have my GL account display what department each transaction was coded to, or I can pick and choose and say only run my GL account for a particular department or a group of departments or any other dimension in the system that we use. So a quick example of that, I'll just come into an entity level here and I will go to run a general ledger detail report. And what I'll do is both of those things that I just said, I will do both of those things. So I'll run my GL detail report here from January 1, 2019 to April 30th of 2019, just because that's where the demo environment is. I'm going to run it on all of my expense accounts. I'm going to leave revenue out of the picture for now. And I'm not going to identify a department. I'm going to say I'm going to run it for all of my departments. But when I run this report, I would like to see a couple of things extra that maybe a standard GL detail report out of other systems don't show. First of all, I'm going to say, show me my vendor name, because we are looking at expenses. And then I'm also going to say, show me my department name. And now when I run this GL detail report, not only do I get really good value with those extra columns, which will just allow you to do more, learn more while you're looking, but I also get the capability to drill back into every transaction as well. So you can see here that in the salaries and wages, we can see expenses for all of our different departments. If I scroll down, same thing with employee benefits, although they're all admin. I really want to get to somewhere where we have a vendor tagged. Hopefully I'll get down here and we'll see some vendors. I do believe I have some transactions here. Working in a demo environment, lots of times everything is just brought in as a journal entry, and that is in fact what we are seeing here. I'll expand my search in a moment. I'm going to expand this out. I'm going to expand this out to the end of the year. Now I'm actually going to take away payroll accounts. I'll skip over my payroll accounts. We'll start at travel. More likely to get things in that range. This payroll is probably done with a journal entry anyhow. So when this runs now, we kind of get the same thing. I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find myself some vendors. Yeah, here are some. So you see if something does go in via an AP bill, it's also showing me my vendor name. Now, using the dimensions, I can filter to see particular transactions. So we will use National Grid as an example. Maybe you're doing some analysis on your vendors and you say you decide you want to see every GL entry that went in, every expense that was incurred that came from National Grid. Well, I could come in to customize and I can come to my vendor and I can say, only show me my GL detail report if it's tagged with National Grid. And that's going to isolate data really, really quickly. Here are all the expenses we incurred in that time frame from National Grid. And then maybe you want to go a step further and you say, I'm trying to do an analysis on my marketing department and National Grid. If we come back out here and we tag both National Grid and my marketing department, it's going to go ahead and filter it even more for me. So as you can see, it's really easy to isolate data that you need to by using these dimensions. But you're not forced to isolate the data, as I mentioned, right? If I left my filters blank, then I saw transactions for every vendor in every department. But if I fill dimensional value in, it really allows me to, again, isolate that data, which is really important for analytical purposes. So really, really cool stuff there. Now, then other example that I like to use for these dimensions and what they can do for you comes with a financial report. And that is honestly where they're probably leveraged a little bit more across our clients. But what I like to do is just take a profit and loss here to start. So we'll jump in and we'll take a profit and loss. We'll go ahead and run this profit and loss. Again, I am going to run it for the end of December of 2019. So when I come in here, I have 4 columns that I've specifically added to this report. I have my current month, I have my prior month, I have a variance from one month to the next. So you can see that 12017 is the difference between 42443 and 3426. And then I have my entire year at the end here. So maybe after looking at this report, you say, this is fantastic. I can drill back from here. I've got some nice subgroups and groupings on my financial report, which, this is the out of the box view, but of course we can make your P&L look however you like. So, you can drill back, which is really important. But now you look at this and you say, well, I would like to see a P&L for the entire year, but I want to see it individualized for each of my departments on a singular report. So we would have a separate report that's ready to go. We'll go ahead and run this report. And very, very quickly, you're now going to get an individual P&L across all of your separate departments up here in the columns. We have a total to the far right, and this bottom line number of 2.52 million does reconcile to the report we ran just a moment ago. So you can have a sigh of relief and know that this is a fully reconciled report. It's not missing any data. So really great stuff. Now, these financial reports are identical to what I just showed on the GL detail report. And this is probably a little more common again, because if you're doing budgeting by department, you likely have different department managers for your admin department, IT, marketing, sales, and services. They want to see a copy of their P&L. Maybe they want to see it, but you're not going to let them see it. You're not going to let them see the financials across your other departments because they don't need to see it. They don't need to be in the know for that. They should focus on their own department. We can turn filters on the financial reports so that when you are running this report, if you want to run it for an individual report, say the services department, then here it is. Now it's just for the services department. So really great stuff. The other thing that I don't have set up to show, but I will talk about it very quickly, is if you are running a report like I ran a moment ago, or like this report is set up, where it's individualizing or expanding your columns by each of your separate departments, there's a setting you can turn on in Intacct. And maybe I can do it really quickly. Let me give it a try because it's really powerful, where it can run the report for all of your departments at the same time, but it can run them out as individual reports. It can show them it'll separate them all for you. I think this is actually going to work for me. I think now if I run it like this, instead of breaking it out across the columns, I will get a profit and loss here for my sales department. Then if I scroll down, I have a profit and loss for my services department. I get a P&L for my admin department, my marketing, my IT, and away we go. So that's really cool stuff. Instead of having to run that report 5 different times and then split it out, you can just run it once. And with that setup, if you run it in, say, PDF or Excel, it will come out in a nice version for you. So you actually don't have to run it and then export each one out individually. You can just say export it out from the start, and that will actually put it into Excel or PDF for you. Just waiting for that Excel to open up. Trying to figure out on which of my 3 screens it is actually going to pop open on. It's trying now. I don't know why it is being so slow, probably because it knows I'm giving a demo and I don't want to wait that long. But then if you put it out into Excel, then again, you get it here, nice and easy. So now it's a nice quick copy and paste into different tabs, and then you have your individual P&Ls across your departments that you can send out. So that's really great stuff. The financial reporting capabilities out of Intacct are second to none, in my opinion. Not just the reports that it builds, but how easy it is to build those reports and really get to the data that you want to. So good stuff there. Building off of the financial reporting comes the dashboard functionality in Intacct. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at a dashboard here. This is not the dashboard that I wanted to go to. I can tell by the color. They have multiple dashboards in here with the same name on them. This is the one I wanted to get to. While I'm waiting for this to load, I will just take a minute to note that you can have as many dashboards in your system as you like. You can see here in my system, I've got quite a vast amount of dashboards in this demo environment. These can be role-based, they can be user-based, they can be whatever you want them to be on an individual basis. So dashboard by dashboard, one by one, you can determine who should be able to and who should not be able to see that dashboard. So you get that data security as well. So on this dashboard here, we just have a line graph here, which is essentially our P&L in line graph form. The top line in the green is our revenue. The bottom line in blue is our expenses. And the middle line in orange is our net income. We have some performance indicators. So these are comparative values. This one is being compared against our budget. This one is being compared against the prior month, as is this one and this one. If I scroll down, you'll see others. This one's being compared 3 months prior, and it's actually showing the variance in a dollar amount rather than a percentage, just to show the flexibility. And it doesn't have to be 1 month prior or your budget. It can be last fiscal year to date, same month in the last fiscal year. You get to choose what the comparative value is kind of where I'm trying to get. The graphs on these dashboards are really great for a number of reasons. First of all, they're a little bit interactive. So if you want to isolate, say, a line, my net income line, I can click my key to add and take away lines in a flash. I can do that with any graph here, by the way. It's not restricted. If you're interested in the underlying dollar values behind each section of the graph, you can click on Show Data for every single graph that you have out here, and you'll see that it pops up the financial data in a table for you really, really quickly, which again is just really useful for analytical purposes. But my favorite part about these graphs is since they're derived from financial reports, they're going to maintain drill down functionality. So if I hover over a dot for revenue, I can see that it's 1.08 million. If I want to see the details behind that revenue for May 31st of 2019, I can click on that dot. That will open up the revenue portion of my P&L. If I click on an expense dot, that is going to open up the expense portion of my P&L. And I think everybody's going to be able to put one and one together and take a wild guess at what happens if I click on a net income dot. It's going to open up my entire P&L. And then from here, I can continue to drill backwards. I like the drill downs from the dashboard because as you can see here, they don't take me away from my dashboard. They actually pop open in new windows. So I can drill down freely without worrying about navigation. And when I'm done, I can just close a couple of windows and here I am still on my dashboard. So that's fantastic. The last thing I will say is these dashboards operate exactly the same as the GL detail report and the financial report, the P&L that I showed you a moment ago. You can filter these dashboards for particular dimensions. So if I wanted to look at this dashboard just for a particular dimension, say my services department, the pie graph down here, by the way, will be the biggest indicator because this is broken out by department. It's the one widget on this dashboard that is by department. So this should turn into one full pie graph because we're just running it for a single department, right? So when I click apply, exactly that will happen. My dashboard will run and all of this data will be isolated and only show the data that was tagged to the department that I specified up in my filters. My line graph has changed. I can see that it has changed. It's fairly drastic. My services revenue actually didn't change because all services revenue is coded to the services department. So that's why we haven't seen a lot of change in these performance indicators. And then you notice the pie graph is just all services now because my filter is working. So really, really strong dashboard functionality. It's really good stuff. Moving away from dimensions and financial reporting and dashboards, the next module I will talk about will be multi-entity, multi-currency, and consolidated financial statements. So if you are working in an organization that has multiple operating entities under the corporate umbrella, you'll no longer be required to have multiple different logins or multiple different instances. I know, again, I have the experience. I did work for that type of organization. And when I was doing work in one of the companies and I wanted to go do work in one of the other companies, I had to log out of the company I was in. I had to ask around and say, like, hey, is anybody logged into this company? Are you in multi-user mode? If you're not, can you log out and log back in? It was a really small thing, but it's just one of those small things where it annoys you and it just gets under your skin. In Intacct, that will go away completely. So this demo environment has exactly that. It has 8 different operating entities in it at the moment. I know they're all labeled as countries, but they are just meant to represent actual operating entities that file their own financial statements in their own currencies and so on. So if I am doing work in USA Company 1, where I'm showing this dashboard, and I say, you know what, I'd like to see this dashboard for my Canada company. I don't have to log out and log back in. I click my drop down, I click my Canada company, and that's going to go ahead and open up my Canada company in a completely different tab for me. So I could have all 8 of my entities open here across tabs. I have some clients that I've hopped on a support call with them and I've seen them that they have that going. Me personally, I probably wouldn't because then my screen is just bulked out. It kind of just bothers me. And it's so easy to switch between them that I don't really see the need. So again, if I click on Australia from my Canada company, that's going to open up my Australia company. And then they're all on separate tabs here. So there's no limit to the amount of tabs you can have open. There's no limit to the amount of users that can be logged in here and working simultaneously. It is an instantaneous update. So if, Neil were in this environment right now and I were to go post a journal entry, when he refreshed his screen or when he moved from one screen to another, if you were to go try to look up that journal entry, it would be there immediately. Now, the question that always comes from this is, what if I have employees that should be able to work in one of these entities or 2 of them or 3 of them, but not all of them. I don't want them to be able to see the financial data or to log into all of these companies. I only want them to be able to access those that they work for. That's a really simple, easy thing to solve in Intacct. It's just maintained on a user record. So if we look at a user, say this is Chelsea, if we go to the user entities here for Chelsea, Chelsea is not restricted. So she can see all the entities when she logs in. But if we wanted to restrict her to only see particular ones, we just hit this drop down and we say, Chelsea really only works in the US. She shouldn't be able to see anything else. If I were to save this and Chelsea were to log into the company, when she logged in and she hit this drop down list, she would just see 100, 200, and 300. She wouldn't even know these other ones exist unless, she just knew it from general knowledge, but you get the idea. So super easy to restrict them and no worries there. All of these entities, they are operating in their own functional currencies. So as you can see, the Australian company reports in Australian dollars, the Canadian company reports in Canadian dollars, sales demo, Canadian dollars, South Africa in the South African rand, the US companies in US dollar, and the UK company in GBP. At any point in time, I can create a multi-currency transaction. So I could come into my Canada company and say I get an accounts payable invoice from one of our vendors, and that vendor is in the US. I can come down here and I can put in a US dollar transaction. So I say this bill was for 500 US dollars. Based on today's exchange rate, that equals $690.80. My exchange rate is right here, and you'll notice that the exchange rate date is today, September 16th of 2025. I have not imported exchange rates into this system today. You don't ever have to. They are linked directly to the source, which is Oanda. Just for everybody's information, it is Oanda. This is where Intact gets their exchange rates. And it is a fully historical table. Like, this is not very realistic in my opinion. If I were putting in an accounts payable bill today, chances are the accounts payable bill probably has a date of something like August 7th, 2025, and we would probably use that day for the exchange rate because that is the day we incurred the expense. So you'll notice that my exchange rate is updated. So this number has changed. To show the true power behind this, I can change my exchange rate date back 20 years, September 7th of 2025 or 2005, sorry. And you'll see the exchange rate is updated. So there it is. So that's really great stuff. Now, when I go ahead and pay this bill, the system will look at what the exchange rate is when I pay the transaction, when the money goes out the door, compared to what the exchange rate was when we entered the transaction, and it will automatically post a foreign exchange gain or loss for us based off of our configuration in the system. And on top of that, at any point in time, I could create a set of consolidation books to consolidate the financials for any number of these companies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or all 8 of them, into any currency in the world that I want to. So those books are maintained under the consolidation module and under the books setup. We have our global books in this environment, our North American books, and our non-US locations. If I wanted to set up a new set of books, I would click on add. I would give the book a name. I'm just going to go super quick for that. I will choose the currency that I want to consolidate these into. And anybody paying attention is going, he said every currency in the world, but I only see 5 here. These are just the 5 we have enabled right now. So we can enable any currency we want. I will show you that in a moment just to give you the peace of mind. So we choose the currency we want them to flow into, and then we come over to our entities to consolidate, and we simply pick and choose which entities should be included in these consolidation books. We would turn on inter-entity auto eliminations. That will eliminate our intercompany accounts when we consolidate automatically. The system will automatically pull in your generic due to and due from accounts that we set up during config. But if you have other interco accounts like intercompany revenue or intercompany expenses, whatever it may be, intercompany professional fees, if you want things like this to eliminate upon consolidation, you can manually just add those other accounts in here. So you're not limited to your generic due to and due from accounts. Once your consolidation books are set up, it's very easy to run a consolidation. You come out to the Run Consolidation menu, you pick the set of books you want to run a consolidation for, you choose the time period that you want to consolidate. You can just click on Consolidate up here in the top right corner and let it go. I prefer to click Consolidate with options because it actually works a little bit quicker, and you also get a chance to review the exchange rates that are being used to consolidate from the functional currency of each entity into the currency of the consolidated books, which in this case is USD. Again, these are sourced from Oanda. You can override these exchange rates if you want to. I will say that the exchange rates from Oanda are usually really, really generally accepted. I think I've only had 2 clients that ever wanted to change these exchange rates, but they were never really worried about changing the exchange rates at the transactional table because they're whatever, those are what they are. It was more when it came to their consolidated financials, either their auditors had given them a particular exchange rate to use, or they have a larger parent company that consolidates using a different exchange rate table. So they would override the exchange rates on their consolidation. But as you can see, it's super quick and easy to do. So it's not like it's a big pain. Once you run your consolidations, you will have consolidated financials ready right at your fingertips. So no exporting to Excel, no manually mapping GL accounts, no manually updating exchange rates. Really, really eliminates the risk of human error that does exist and is very prominent in the exercise that I just explained. You know, anytime you export out to Excel and you have to do a lot of manipulation of that data, there's always that underlying feeling of, is something wrong? Now I know you're going to do balance and checks to make sure it's right, but again, that takes time. If the report is system driven, you get a warm, fuzzy feeling about your data a lot easier. You just tend to have a little more trust in it. So here we see a consolidated balance sheet for our global books in US dollars. If we scroll down, we have a consolidated P&L for our global books in US dollars, showing each entity out from left to right. If we scroll down more, we get a consolidated P&L for our non-US books in GBP, our North America books in USD, balance sheet for both of those consolidated books respectively as well. So really strong consolidation, multi-entity, multi-currency environment. The last thing that I will note is if you have any transactions that would result in a intercompany transaction needing to occur. The most basic example would be a transfer of money, transferring money out of one bank account into another bank account, and one bank account is owned by one entity, but the other bank account is owned by a different entity. If we take this transaction here, for example, bank account 100 is owned by company 100. Bank account 200 is owned by company 200. If we look at this transfer of funds and we look at the journal entry for this transfer of funds, you will notice that the due to and due from transaction happened with this transaction. You do not have to go separately post this journal entry two different times, once in one entity and once in the other. The system handles it all for you. So a really more controlled interco balance across your entities, which is, it's just really, really nice because these can be very difficult to manage. And if they come out of balance, not a great time. Again, I have been there. So a really strong module. The next module that I will talk about will be a combination of the accounts payable and the purchasing module. Okay. I'm going to focus on the AP module for just a quick second. So the AP module is an AP module is an AP module 99 times out of 100, right? You know, you need to be able to enter your vendors. You want to be able to put in the detail that you need. So it has all of that. You come in, you search for your vendor, you can start typing by name. You don't have to know the vendor ID. So that's really nice. Put in our bill number. I know in some environments, if you're dealing with multi-currency, if sometimes Scribe Post invoices you in Australian dollars, but other times they invoice you in a different currency, say US dollars or Canadian dollars, you actually have to have separate vendors. In Intacct, you do not. You can just change the currency here. You can put in transactions to the same vendor in different currencies, and the system, the way the aging report works and the reval and all of that good stuff, it's perfectly okay. It works wonderfully. So you enter everything in as you normally would. The one thing that Intacct does do a little bit differently than other systems is if you've entered in an AP bill and you notice that you have made, say, a coding error on that AP bill. I know in some systems you actually have to go back, and I'm just trying to turn off a setting here so I can show this stuff and turn off bill approvals here. You actually can't go back and edit that bill if it's posted. It's like it was posted in a batch. You can't change anything. You actually have to either get that bill out by putting in, a credit note, or you need a journal entry to correct that keying error. In Intacct, that goes away. If a bill is in a state of posted and your period is open, you can do whatever you like. I can edit this bill. I can change the vendor. I can change the GL account. I can change the taxes. I can change anything that's tagged down at the line level here. I can make any change that I need. See if a bill is in a state of posted, I can come in and change what I like. I can change the vendor. I can change the GL account, the amount, whatever's tagged at the line level. I can do what I like here. It's only posted. It doesn't matter. So there are other systems that do that as well. But something else that Intacct does that I know other systems do not do, even if a transaction is paid, if that transaction is paid and the period is open, I'm hoping that October here is open. I'm going to go with December. Little bit better chance that this is open. I can still make changes to correct the coding error as long as it's not going to affect the vendor. So I would be able to come in here and change things like the GL account that was tagged, department that was tagged, the project that is tagged, the location. Things that I wouldn't be able to hit would be my transaction amount, my taxes, and so on. So that is one thing that Intacct allows you to do that other solutions will not. We can also run AP bill approvals in system. So if you want your AP bills to go through an approval policy before they post, we can do that in the system with email notifications and approval lists and all that good stuff. And we can set up vendor approvals as well. So if a vendor is added or if an existing vendor is edited before that vendor can be used again, so before any payments can be made, before any more transactions can be entered, that vendor would have to go through an approval policy. Next, I'm going to jump into the purchasing module. The purchasing module is basically just a more powerful accounts payable module. These two modules are actually completely intertwined with one another. Like if I come into the purchasing module and I enter in a vendor invoice, it does create a corresponding bill out here. You see how this bill here says vendor invoice? That means that this accounts payable transaction sourced from the purchasing module and not from the accounts payable module. You can see I can get back to my purchasing document, but it just creates the record in the AP module as well. No double posting or anything. Obviously, that wouldn't work. It's just like a mirror of it. But we like to talk about the purchasing module for a couple of reasons. The first is you can create your procurement workflow from start to finish. You can decide whether you want to have purchase requisitions. Most of my clients probably skip purchase requisitions and they just go straight into purchase orders and they put an approval policy on the purchase order. So then the purchase order kind of acts as both the requisition and the order, kind of eliminates a step from that process. And then you can move into a receipt of inventory if you're an inventory company and on to creating a vendor invoice. You are going to get a three-way match, a four-way match, how many ever steps your procurement process has, you will get the documents matched together and in an audit trail. And again, you can turn on approvals for any document in your workflow. By that, I mean the purchase requisition here. This could be on one type of approval workflow. The quote, while it is still considered a purchase requisition, that could be on a different approval workflow. And travel authorization could be on another separate approval workflow. And same thing with any of your purchase orders, your vendor invoices. And again, it comes with a really, really strong audit trail. So to take a look at said audit trail, if I come into my purchase order list, you're going to notice that one of these here is in a state of submitted. So that would mean it is awaiting approval. We can click on submitted, and after that, we can click on approval history, and we can check to see who this was routed to for approval, and we can also see why it was routed to them for approval if you know the different ways the system can. So this was actually sent to Emma directly, like just we identified these every purchase order goes directly to Emma. But a better example would maybe be something a little more fresh because I would have entered it. Come up to this one here that's in a state of converted. So first of all, here's your three-way match. So what the state of converted means is the purchase requisition was entered. It got pushed through any approval policy that was set up for it. It was transitioned into a purchase order, and then purchase order was fulfilled, and we received our vendor invoice. So it was converted into a vendor invoice. So you get a nice three-way match, and you can drill back to any of those documents that are related to the original with just a click. But we also get up here the approval history button. Even though the approvals are done, the audit trail still exists, and it's not one that I wanted to show. I know there's a stronger one in here. I believe it's going to be on my purchase requisitions is where the better one is. I just want you to see a couple examples of the different ways we can route these for approval. Is this one? Yeah, this one's going to work. So this is a three-step approval policy we have on this document. It's going to first go to the department manager, which is Ryan. It's then going to go to the project manager, which is Tom, and then it's going directly to a specified person, who is again Tom. Now, Tom here would not have to do multiple approvals. Since he is a consecutive approver listed here, he would just stamp the button once and it would approve for him. But this rule type, transaction department approval, transaction project manager approval, what that means is on this transaction, back in the table here, we have tagged out a department and we've tagged out a project. Now, if we look at Department 200 for services, you can see we have identified Ryan as being the manager of that department. And if we take a look at the project, we're going to be able to see that Tom has been identified as the project manager. So what this does is kind of automatically route approvals for you. You set up your rules so that I come in here and I enter in this transaction and I tag it to a department and I tag it to a project. And when I click submit, the system comes back and looks at the department that I tagged, looks up who the manager of that department is, and routes it to them for approval. And then it does the same thing with the project dimension. It can also do the same thing with the location dimension or the employee dimension. And there are also vendor-based approvals in Intacct as well. So those are some ways we can send things for approval. The other way you've seen is directly to a specific person. And then the last way is value driven. So you set your different value levels, like level 1 is 0 to $49,999.99. Level 2 starts at 50,000 and maybe goes up to 99,999.99. Level 3 goes from 100,000 and so on. Now those value approvals, those can be direct or they can be progressive. So all I mean by that is if you put in a transaction that's in level 3 and you're using the direct method, it's going to skip level 1, skip level 2, go straight to level 3. If we have progressive on, it's first going to go to level 1, then to a level 2 person, and then lastly to the level 3 person. Well, what I want you to see is just a little bit of the setup behind this. So you see on a purchase requisition, I now have set up that first it's going to go to the project manager, then it's going to go to the department manager, then it's going to go to the location manager, then it's going to go through a value approval, and the levels that we have set are similar to what I said a moment ago. Not quite, but almost. And then we could continue to build onto this. Like we could say next it goes to a user level. So now it goes to, after this, it goes to Tom, and that is the other example that we've seen. So as you can see, you can have many steps in your approval workflow. This is certainly overkill. It's probably overkill before I came in here, but just so you can see that. And this all comes with email notifications to both the approver themselves and the original submitter. So like if I put in a transaction, the approvers would get an email and say, hey, there's a transaction for you to approve. When they approve or decline it, I will also receive an email that says your transaction was approved or your transaction was declined. During the approval policy or declining it, they can add notes. So I'm not just going to be going in blind. If it gets declined, they can leave a note on why it was declined. You'll also see here that we can turn on delegation of approvals. So if somebody is going on vacation, they can delegate their approvals out to whoever their delegate is. And there's also this called the unrestricted approver. And what that allows people to do is make sure nothing is stuck in limbo. So in this system, I'm not a project manager. I'm not a department manager. I'm nothing in this system. I'm not even a user technically. I log in here through a console. But if something was stuck in limbo, you would be able to come in and make me the unrestricted approver. And what that allows me to do is come out to the approved transaction screen, which is just right here, and allows me to approve anything in the system. I have unlimited authority. You would really only ever use this if something is stuck in limbo. Somebody went on vacation, they didn't turn their delegations on, so it's stuck there. You need to push something through the workflow. You would only really have a really trusted person able to change that setting. So just in summary, nothing can ever be stuck in limbo in Intacct. So that is a quick overview of the purchasing module. Before I open up the floor for questions, I just want to say a little end note here. I don't want anybody to think that, oh, hey, I saw Intacct today, I saw everything it could do, and it looks okay. I don't even like to say we scratched the surface of Intacct. We have really just like glossed the surface of Intacct. I've talked about a couple of modules. An hour is really difficult for me to fit things in. I love this solution, so I get excited about almost anything that's in it. But the modules that I did show, even the modules I did show, like take this purchasing module, for example. If I go into the configuration screen for the purchasing module, there are things in here that I didn't talk about. Making additional posting transactions in the transaction currency, turning on match tolerances, enable conversions from multiple source documents, using price schedules or vendor price list or fixed vendor discounts, automatic price variance posting. Just even in a module that I did kind of briefly show you, there are more things that I could dive into. I could spend an hour and a half or 2 hours on the purchasing module alone in Intacct and show you different functionalities. So The modules that I did show you, I showed you really, really quickly, like just kind of the core functionality, just like a glimpse of the system and it's fresh UI and just being user friendly. But on top of that, glossing over modules that I did show, there are a vast amount of modules that I didn't even get a chance to mention. So as a quick summary, there is a full projects module in here, project costing and billing, rechargeable expenses to your clients, markup of those, billable time tracking, billing out for your employees' time. There's a time module where your employees can come enter their time. There is an expenses module where your employees can come enter their staff expenses. There is a fixed asset management schedule or a module where you can automatically add your assets when you're adding the bill, generate your depreciation schedules, have them posted automatically. There is an inventory control module that can handle warehousing, rows, aisles, bins, zones, groups, serial numbers, expiration dates, lots, inventory valuation, inventory replenishment, lead time on vendors. As long as you're not doing any manufacturing, a fairly strong inventory module. There's a full-blown revenue recognition module, a prepaid expense amortization module. There is budgeting. There's a contract management module where we can handle subscription contracts, usage billing, tiered pricing, step pricing, just a vast amount of different things that I would be able to show you. So I want to thank you for coming out and hopefully we have a couple questions to run through. But just keep in mind that Intact is much more vast than you've seen here today. It really is just a little glimpse of what this solution can do and the type of functionalities that it has. So again, I'll thank everybody for their time. I appreciate you coming out and listening to me ramble for an hour. If you have any more questions about Intact, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Everyone, take care.